beautiful country people, welcome to yet another episode of the Nev to Save talk show. I am your host, Miriam Changa. Today I host a pretty amazing woman. She's really brilliant. She's doing amazing work, and I would love you to just meet her so that we get to love on her and get to know her. Rose, it's good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, Mira.
Thank you for coming. I know we've really just trying to, have an interview with you and get to have a one-to-one conversation with you, and it has not been easy.
I've been hiding. I take all the what can I say? I take all the blame for not showing up. I'm here now.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I'm here.
So now, just tell us, who is Rose?
Okay. Well, who is Rose is not a very easy question to answer. Because when a lot of people ask me who is Rose, a lot of things go through my head. But Rose is a young Zambian lady that lives in Kabwe, of course, and is a student at the University of Zambia. I'm also the Minister of Gender Ethics and Integrity at UNZA, under the Students' Union UNZASU. I'm pursuing a bachelor's degree in geography in education. And then I'm also the founder of I Survived, which is so close to my heart. It's one of the biggest reasons why I breathe in and out every day, because I Survived is my driving force. That's where my biggest passion lies.
Let's talk about I Survived. How did it all begin? Is that a personal story that you actually just get to tell out there?
Okay, so for I Survived, initially, I Survived was supposed to be a blog, a personal blog, where I write about my experience and just find out from other people and be able to share their experience on a personal level, where I could just write about my thoughts and my challenges around sexual violence. So in 2018, December, my friend told me if it's a blog, a lot of people might not be able to read it and know about it, but if we turn it into a Facebook page, a lot of people will get access to it, and then later on it could become an organization where people are comfortable to come into and have a community of survivors that have gone through sexual violence. So 2019 January 7th, I started I Survived. I was supposed to start it on the 1st of January, but my nerves were not at ease. I was so anxious, feedback from society. I was so scared. So it took me another 7 days into the new year to start I Survived. So I started it on the 7th, and I noticed that even before the 7th, there were a lot of people that I knew that were sharing their experiences around sexual violence, rape, sexual abuse, and whatnot. So when I finally started I Survived on the 7th, people were sending in their stories even when they didn't know me. Even before I had shared my own personal experience, I had people willing to share their experiences with me, because this friend of mine, he had spoken to people about it, okay, there's a friend of mine, she wants to do this, so if you know somebody that wants to come out either anonymous or with their identity, they could share. So I had people sharing their story, and then I noticed that even the feedback or the growth was very limited, because people couldn't relate with me. They didn't understand why I wanted to be able to share people's experiences. So the same friend of mine encouraged me to share my experience so that I become more relatable and people can be more comfortable to share their experiences. So I couldn't share my own experience on my page. So coincidentally, there was Gibson Sai from Girl Empowerment Alliance for Change. He was like, oh, okay, I've seen what you're doing with I Survived. Why do you do it? And then I explained that it's because of my own personal experience. And then he was like, okay, I could share your personal experience for you. And I was like, okay, great. That's what I've been looking for, someone that would just be willing to share my experience for me. So I wrote down my story and I emailed it to him, and then he put it out on his page. And the day he put it out, it was very, because most of my family members were going to see that for the first time, because I hadn't spoken about it. And so I shared my experience, and from there I Survived started growing very fast, because now people could relate to what I had gone through and why I was doing this. And then also people on my team increased. I had more people wanting to work with me. And so that's what I Survived has been for the past year.
Now let's talk about your experience. How did it all begin, and when did you actually just finally realize that I really just want to come out and share this with everyone else, despite what was going to happen after you sharing?
Okay, so my first time when I was 8, I think that's as far as I can remember. I was 8 years old, and I was in my 3rd grade. And I was living with my mom in Lusaka, and most of my female sisters are much older than me, so I wasn't living with any of them. I was just living with my brothers and my mom. So it was in that time that my brother started to sexually abuse me, and a lot of it happened in my sleep. So every time I slept and I woke up, I would find him either on top of me or getting off me or cleaning semen off my clothes. And this happened for a while. And so when I noticed, it got to me, and I asked him, why is it that every time I wake up, I find you? Even if I'm sleeping during the day, I'm sleeping at night, I'll find you next to me. And he told me, I do it because if mom sees these things, she's going to beat you up for it. And like for me, it was believable because my mom was very rough. My mom used to beat us for different kinds of things. She would beat us for having friends. My mom was a very rough person. So him telling me that, I believed it immediately, and I figured, okay, he must really care about me to want to make sure I don't get beaten. So it continued, and I didn't tell anyone about it. And then it even moved from like just it happening in my sleep to it happening when we're playing Vazavana, those family games. He would be the dad, or I would be the mom, or he would be the dad and I would be the female. And there were other kids around that would play along with that game. And he would ask me to touch him, or he would just play with us so much as children. And like he would do all of these things that I didn't understand as a child, that didn't make sense. But I just took it as playing. So a few years later, my abuser changed. It wasn't my brother anymore, but like someone that was delivering stock for my mom's business. My mom had a business. She was selling charcoal right in our backyard. So there was this guy that used to deliver, and like he would be so nice to me, He would buy me sweets, he would give me money. At the time we had like 1,000 kwacha before they rebased the currency. So he would like be there doing nice things to me, saying nice things. He would actually, I was like 11. I should have been 11, grade 6 or grade 5, somewhere there, 10 to 11. And he would be nice to me, and he would put me on his lap, and he would do things that were very uncomfortable for me. But then, I didn't receive that kind of niceness in the home that I was coming from. And for him to just do those nice things, it made me feel nice about myself, because I was coming from a home where I was being bullied for how I looked, and like I had very low self-esteem at that age, and to find someone that would like see something else that other people don't see made me feel valued. And so I didn't tell anyone about it until this one time he did the usual, putting me on his lap and stuff, touching me, and then he decided to go an extra mile, and then I just felt a very sharp pain in between my legs, and I was on his lap, and I felt squeezed, I was uncomfortable. And then after all that had happened, I decided to go home, like as the usual. After we play, we'd go home. And when I got home, I decided to go and bath, and I noticed that there were bloodstains on my underwear, but I didn't tell anyone about it because I thought maybe it's because I had injured myself or something, and because I was coming from a home where we didn't talk about these things. And my mom didn't even take time to listen. Like if I went and showed my mom like, oh, I have blood on my pants, it didn't feel like she would listen to why she would beat me up for it. So I just said, okay, you know what, I'll just hide this and move on. So when I noticed like second day there was no bleeding, I was like, okay, fine, I must have really injured myself, and I just brushed off. But because of the pain that I had felt physically, I started to like distance myself from that guy. And then also he stopped showing up. I think he must have gotten married or something. He stopped showing up, and then I had gone for a holiday at a close family member's house. And while at that house, her husband used to touch me. And they would jokingly say, this is your husband, and he would touch me, he would touch my breast, or he would touch my bums, and like they wouldn't do anything about it. He would do it in front of my mom or in front of his wife, and they would laugh about it. So I started to think, okay, it's normal. If it's happening in front of these adults and they don't think there's anything wrong, then it's normal. So I remember him doing that when it was just me and him, and he asked me to escort him to the car park. This time he actually like pulled my shirt and just touched me while I was serving him water. So like after that he told me to escort him to park the car, and while parking the car he asked me if I was going to tell my mom about it, because it was very painful, because he squeezed my breast and it was painful. So I was wondering whether or not I was going to tell my mom. And when he asked me if I was going to tell my mom about it, I said no, and he pulled out a phone and he gave me my first phone. So I figured, of course, like, why am I going to tell my mom about it? And it didn't occur to me that I should tell my mom, because one, my mom had never spoken to me about it to say, okay, when this happens, you report back to me. So I figured, okay, it's just one of those things. And because it has been happening even in her presence and she didn't address it, then it's not a big deal. So I just went back home, and the holiday had ended. I went back home, and then while at home, I resumed going to school. So my teacher had a conversation, a girl talk, with the girls at my school, because there was an issue of pads being found in the ablution and stuff. So she decided to have like a conversation with us, and it was in that conversation that a lot of things became clear to me, because she would say, okay, when this happens to you, this is what it means. When a man does this, this is what it means. And like when she was talking, the map, like the puzzle started coming together in my head. I'm like, this happened to me, I relate with this happened to me. And then she had like names for them. Like she was like, okay, when this happens, it's defilement. When this happens, it's rape. When this happens, so like I sat with myself in that class and I was confused, and I was like, all these things that she just mentioned have happened to me. And I decided, okay, I'm going to ask some girls in class if this had happened to them. So I asked some girls that I used to talk to in my class, and I asked them, have you ever experienced someone like touching you like this? They'll be like, no. Have you ever woken up and found this on your clothes? No. And it was everything they said no to had happened to me. And it was in that moment that I realized that something wrong had happened to me. And that's when the real pain kicked in. Like, it was the physical pain before was there, but like at that moment it was like a deep pain, because now I didn't understand why my brother would do something like that. Like, why would you do something like that to your young sister, you know? And that's why I felt the pain so much. And like my whole personality changed. Before that, yes, I was a quiet child. I never used to like talk a lot, and I was like more in love with my family before that. But like with the realization came with a lot of pain. And now I realize like there's nobody that like cares for me. I felt like I needed to stand up for myself. So I became a very rude and arrogant child in order to mask what I was feeling, because I was feeling a lot of anger and a lot of pain, so much towards my brother, towards that man, towards that guy that I didn't even know so well, towards my mom, because like my mom should have protected me. According to what my teacher had said, she said your parents should protect you. And where was my mom in that moment? So I was so angry. I went to grade 8 and I was very angry still. And in grade 8 I got introduced to pornography by a friend. So there were all these things that I was doing as a teenager that nobody knew, and I didn't even understand myself. Like I was still trying to figure it out. Like I was just a 12-year-old girl that just found out that I had been abused for the past 4 years in my life, and I had no idea that it was wrong. And so most of the times at school, we had these campaigns, True Love Waits, Virgin Power, Virgin Pride, and these things were very painful for me to live through, because when these people would come to my school, they would say, oh, there's a True Love Waits club. It's for girls that have never had sex before, or girls that are virgins, that this and this has never happened to before. And they would give out pink cards to sign, and they would emphasize that it's for girls that have not done these things. And I'm 13 years old, and I know that this had happened to me. So meaning I don't fit in that category. And the whole time that I was in school, in grade 8 and grade 9, I was at Kablanga Basic. There was nothing like that came my way. There was nothing of my kind. There was nobody that came and said, okay, defiled children, this is something for you to sign. Children that have been abused, this is a community for you to go to, this is who you can talk to. So I just, in that moment again, a hate for other girls that didn't go through what I went through just began to build, because now I started thinking, there's something wrong with me. Why should I be the only girl of all these girls who it's happening to? I remember in my class when people were signing the true love weights, all the girls had taken a card except me. And I was like, because they had spoken to my conscience so much, Mira, that I couldn't stand up and pick up the card, because like the emphasis felt like they even knew, or maybe there was a way I looked that maybe they were warning me from taking the card. So I stayed back, and I realized that all the girls in class had stood up to pick up this card. And it made me feel like there's really something wrong with me. And like in this world, there's just me. So I just have to stand up for myself and fight for myself. And then years went on. I struggled with same-sex attraction, because like I didn't like boys. I didn't want to be around boys. And even when I tolerated certain boys in my life, it wasn't anything romantic or anything that I wanted to be in. It was because I just wanted to feel accepted somewhere. I should fit in somewhere in society. If it's not with the girls that are like girls like me, then maybe with the boys. So most of the boys that I hung out with were friends, some of which took advantage of the fact that they were friends, and they would take advantage of my situation. So in 2015, I decided to, me and my brother, the very one that is my abuser, got into an altercation. Like we were arguing. I don't know what about. I don't remember really. But like in the argument, my mom and my sisters were almost like taking his side, and it felt like they were cornering me. So I decided to tell them, like, this very person that you are so much defending, this is what he did to me, you know? And like there was just a moment of silence, and like it was just shocking news. And he got very defensive. He was like, when did I do that? Tell me when. What was I wearing? Which day? Tell me the time, because I don't remember such a thing. And you know, the way he rejected it, or the way he denied it, made me realize that yes, he did it. Because I could look at him and he was denying it, not to me, but to my mom, so that my mom can see that he's still the son that she loves. And this brother is seemingly my mom's favorite child. To me, it seems like he's my mom's favorite child, because like the time that I lived with him and my mom, even after the abuse, my mom always defended him. My mom was always by his side. He's the child that my mom spoiled, you know? And I thought maybe if I tell her, or if I blurt it out, like, okay, yeah, this is what happened to me, it would almost like turn things around for me, and my mom would like look at me and know that I need her, because like I'm going through these things that I don't understand. But like when it came out, my mom was quiet, and then a few minutes or an hour maybe, she came to me and she told me she doesn't want the story to leave the house, and she went to sleep like it was nothing. And then my sisters felt bad for me, because one of my sisters, the one I'm living with right now, felt like she should have been there for me and she wasn't. But like from my mom, who I really wanted support from, just slept it off. And the following day we moved on like nothing ever happened. And then I was made to live in the same space with this guy, because there was nowhere else I was going to go. So I had to live under the same roof with my abuser, cook and clean for him and after him, you know? And I had to live like in harmony with him, even when the rest of the house knew what he had done. And that was just pain mounting, because like I just wanted my mom to look at me and to love me, you know? And it didn't happen. So from 2015 to 2019, I spent 4 years nursing my wounds and carrying this burden because my mom said I shouldn't share it with anyone. So now I was torn apart. Do I not share? Do I share? And if I share, I might lose my mom, and where do I go? So it was just eating me up from my insides. And what was more painful is the fact that my brother continued living life like nothing ever happened. Like he didn't do this thing. Like he's not guilty for anything. And my mom continued to shower him with the same love, like it's nothing. And then my other family member, the man that had abused me at a holiday, he still continued to make advances at me. Even after I had grown, he was still making advances at me and saying all sorts of things that are of a sexual kind to me. I remember in my first year or second year of school, I had no money for food, and I decided to call my sister, and my sister told me no, she didn't have money and whatnot. So he happened to call me, and then he asked me how's school and stuff like that. So I told him, I don't have money, like can you send me some money? And he told me, what's in it for me? Like if I send you money, then what? Like how do you intend to pay me back and whatnot? So from that time I couldn't even go to him to ask for money. So I realized that I needed to depend on myself. I needed to be independent. And it was all these things that were happening. Even after what he did, he still felt the need to make advances at me. So I realized I'm always going to live in this continuous cycle if I don't speak up. And I just got tired. I was physically, emotionally, mentally tired. I was exhausted from feeling that particular way, for masking something for such a long time. And I decided, okay, you know what, I think 2019 is my year. I just want to breathe in and out. And I think if I didn't speak out, I was going to commit suicide, because it was so much pain to just deal with, to hold on to. So when I finally broke the silence in 2019, immediately the story came out, and I read through the comments. It wasn't as bad as I expected, I thought society would take my abuser's side. So I thought society would bash me for it, because there are so many things that I had done based off of my experience that I regretted. I was angry at the wrong people. I bleed on people. I was very mean. I think people that watch this and know me from school, they would know that I was a very bad person, I think I would say, because I was masking so much pain, and I just wanted people to feel how I was feeling. So I inflicted pain on other people in order to feel better about myself. And when I shared my experience, months went on, and I went for radio interviews. People wanted to know what was going on, and none of this that I did was for publicity, for me to get famous. It was a cry for help. I just wanted to feel like a normal person. It was my biggest goal. Even when I was sharing my story with Gibson Sai from Girl Empowerment Alliance for Change, I told him I just want to be normal. If there could be assurance that when I speak out, I'll feel normal again. I'll feel like every other person, like every other girl. I'll just be comfortable to be me in my own skin, and my abusers won't have power over me anymore. It won't matter what they think, and they won't have that amount of power where I can't stand for myself, where I'm uncomfortable when they're around. I also want to just take power of myself. So yeah, it's very painful to live through such an experience, and the pain you feel during the abuse is nothing compared to the pain that you feel with the realization. When you realize okay, yes, this is what happened to me, and these are the people that did it. It's very painful to actually know it's a family member, and you have to live with that family member for the rest of your life. There's no way you can not be their family member anymore. And that's why survivors or victims of sexual violence, you need to come out. You need to speak. You might not come out on TV or social media, but you need to talk about it with someone. You need to name your abusers if it makes you feel better. You need to come out, because you can't stay trapped in a box while someone else lives their life like nothing happened. Because like you're the only one feeling that pain, you know. Those abusers have gone, they've married, they've had kids, they've moved on, and they are stuck in how you feel. So you need to be able to come out. Do not protect your abuser. And also to the parents, like, this is your child. They are going to live through this pain for the rest of their lives. You need to be able to protect them. Believe your child, because it's not easy for someone to just come out and say, hi, I was raped, or hi, I was sexually abused. It's not easy, because you put your whole life on the line, you know. You have to share your experience, and then when you go to other spaces, people will be looking at you like, oh yes, she shared her experience. Oh, that's what happened to her. You need to be able to live through that. It's not easy. And it's not like when we come out, people like me that have come out with their experiences, it's not like we've come out so we can be criticized, or the public can look at us or can feel pity for us. Usually when people come out, it's because they want to feel free, because they've been tied up for such a long time, and you just want to feel free. And I advocate for this because I know what it feels like. I know it's not something that I just imagine. It's something that I've felt. It's something that I've lived through. So that's why I'm so passionate about this, because I know exactly how it feels. And like, to just know that another person will go through what I went through is unbearable. It's very unbearable.
Now, I just want you to, do you think we as society are doing enough, especially when we talk about children in these homes? The perpetrator is actually someone who is close to you. But then we find that a lot of families choose to not actually come out, just like the way it happens to you. Do you think there's a way that we should maybe teach kids, especially in schools they are going to at a very young age, to say, if this person touches this way, just, you know, report somewhere. If it is not your mom, tell a friend, or maybe your friend's mother. Do you think society is doing enough to just protect these children that are being abused?
So society is not doing enough. Society could do more, you know, where sexual violence is concerned, especially against children. I've always been talking about it, like, it's necessary for sex education to be comprehensive in the school curriculum, so that a child knows from the get-go that, okay, if this person touches me, it's not right, I need to talk about it. Because sometimes the abuser is even a teacher. You've taken your child for extra lessons or for tuitions. The man that is attending to your child begins to molest your child, and you might not know about it. So when it's in the curriculum, a child is taught in class, it's not something they're going to forget. It's something they'll keep on in their minds. And I understand that for some parents, it's not easy to start these conversations with your child. So if they're already in the curriculum, it could even be your child's homework. So it's easy for you to pick it up to say, okay, this is what your teacher is trying to teach you. It's okay for you to learn something like this. But immediately, we always run away from these conversations with our children. That's why it keeps happening. Because some parents have never even taught their children that there's defilement, that there's rape, there's abuse. They never do that. They'll just tell your child, no, don't be around guys. And the child doesn't understand why. And you know, the curiosity of children is, or curiosity of young people, they always want to know, why am I being told not to be around these people? Why am I not in this environment? So they'll always put themselves out there so that they can understand why. But if you give fully baked information to your child, they're not going to be curious about anything. Why? Because they know you've given it to them enough information. So I think society needs to do more, and parents need to stop protecting these abusers, you know, and also victim blaming. It's been happening. Just last week, I was very overwhelmed to a point where I almost deleted my social media, because, you know, there were all these cases coming up about rape, about defilement, and a lot of the people were blaming the victim to say, why were you in that environment? Why were you in that space? You let it happen to you because you are in that place. But I feel there's nothing, nobody would be happy to get raped. Nobody wears a t-shirt saying rape me. Nobody carries a poster around town because I'm in a short skirt, rape me. The ability that someone has to rape someone or defile someone is based off of who they are. Because if a man can decide to have sexual relations with a goat, with a chicken, who is a human being, you know? If they can have sexual relations with a child that's 3 days old, 72 hours of existence on earth, you decide to have sex with this child. Who is a 19-year-old? The person is. It's not about who the victim is or how they are dressed or how they look or whatever. It's just who the man is. Because I believe if you're a man and you're not a rapist, even if you find a mad woman laying along the road with her legs open, if you're not a rapist, you will not do it. But if you're a rapist, it will be your chance. So you see, I've seen women with mental health issues in the streets. They are pregnant. How did they get pregnant? It should have been a man somewhere, maybe even a normal man, maybe even a CEO of a certain company that must have slept with a mad woman, and she got pregnant. So all those things, people should think about those things. It's not just about the here and now. And one thing I've realized about sexual violence or sexual abuse is until it hits close to home, then it becomes a real issue. If it's happening in your home, then you realize like it's real. But because you just heard it from a cousin or a neighbor, you don't give it much importance. But when it happens to your child, then you begin to feel it. So I think society should do more.
Rose, thank you so much. You're truly a brave soul. I know coming out has really been something that I know is actually part of your healing, and your story would definitely make a lot of people out there come out, people that have actually failed to come out because they feel society will blame them for what they went through when they're not actually the problem here. So thank you so much for just having time with me. I know we're going to just sit some other time and get to talk more. Thank you. It has been a pleasure. I've truly learned a lot. And thank you so much for sharing your story once more.
Thank you so much, Mira, for having me here to share my experience. And also, every time I share my experience, it's a new feeling, you know? It feels like something has been lifted and I've unpacked something. So thank you so much for this therapeutic conversation.
Thank you. There you have it. I've really just had time to sit down with this amazing person that is doing amazing work. Like I always say, be the change, lead the change, and impact someone's life. I will see you next time.